Uh, so we're live. It's Tom Cassidy here, Reasonable Coaching. I've got Naya in the house, and she is in the house. She's not even at work, on a lunch break. She's actually on vacation. So Naya, what's going on?
All right. Hey, yeah. What's going on is that it is gorgeous outside right now. I'm just so grateful that the sun is out, and I've spent a large chunk of the day, most of the morning and part of the afternoon outside in the yard, and it was really, a lot of good solid work, and just really lovely weather. It beats going to the gym, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The focus of the week and one of the programs that we're working on is gratitude, and it's a lovely focus, isn't it? Gratitude, because it's
It
just
is
so easy.
wonderful focus,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Uh, and,
Yeah.
and and today you said work, but you're not at work. So what work have you been doing?
Oh, right. Well, in this particular case, I just meant putting in some plants
Oh,
and
nice. Oh, nice.
yeah, things like that, laying down some mulch and whatnot. So
Are you pretty in? I do see on some of the WhatsApp groups, I see there's a few discussions on gardening that pique your interest. So is that something that you're quite into?
yes, both me and my mom. So it's definitely an interest for sure. Although in some ways it's kind of like any excuse to be outside.
And you like know the names of the plants and all that good stuff, don't you?
I know some, and I'm learning all the time
Because
for
like for
sure.
me, it's like my granny was really really into it, and we grew up with my grandparents living with us as well. We're very lucky to have a very big house,
Hmm.
and they lived upstairs, and we kind of lived on the ground floor and the very top floor, and so for me, gardening is basically growing up and getting my granny cross with us because we were playing football and destroying her flowers. That's my sort of over. I mean, of course, I loved the flowers being there and they look pretty, but for me, gardening was just, we were always getting into trouble because we were just using, kicking against the shrubberies and that sort of stuff. And neither of my parents are into it, and so
uh,
we didn't really get into it. But Cindy's a massive gardener. Her mum was a big, big gardener, loved it,
oh,
and
that's wonderful.
so our garden is it's great. I mean, I guess. For me, I don't mind that there's lots that there's some things that I'm not particularly into because there's lots of things that I am, right? So,
Well, exactly. That's
yeah,
right. No,
exactly.
it is very easy to get sort of, I want to say bogged down almost in, when you meet somebody that does something like, they're a cellist, for example. We do, in fact, have a cellist amongst our mastermind groups. But anyway, I don't know why I chose that example, but you can see somebody who has a particular talent, and you think, oh, I wish I could, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but that's just sort of a scripted way of responding to it. I mean, you were talking about gratitude. Be, grateful that this person has their talent, that they're able to express it, that they know what it is, and they're sharing it with you,
Mm.
and that you have your own talents that some of which you know, and some of which you can explore and find.
Uncover, yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting, and I think that's as you said, it's scripted. I mean, that's that. I think what's great about the script, the metaphor of the script, not that we didn't kind of know all this stuff already, right? I
Mm,
mean, let's be honest. You've read a lot, and you're a very wise individual, and you're aware of this. But I think what the metaphor of the script does is it makes it really super easy to communicate this kind of stuff to people.
right.
I think that's the thing, and it's like it gives us a language with which we can talk about this without having to talk about something which kind of makes us feel bad, like our internal demons and the battles and wrestling with our tormented artist soul and all that
Mm,
sort of stuff. Hang on a sec,
mm,
would you use that? No, okay, this is script, and I think that makes it really easy. And so we've all got this total simplicity of awareness now, haven't we? To
right.
our own communication. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
No,
Anyway,
oh,
go on. Sorry, no, go on.
no, no, no. I was just going to say that it's interesting because, words have power. They have emotion behind them. They have history behind them. Everybody sort of has different things that they attach to specific words. And so it is very important that you can find metaphors or various ways
Mm.
of describing concepts that doesn't tap into or distract you from the underlying message, right? So it for us, the group, you and I right now,
Mm.
using the metaphor of the script is helpful because it connects to the underlying concepts without sort of pulling us into
Yeah.
feeling bad about it or whatever it is. But the key, and you say you're very good about saying this many times, which is if it's not useful, for some people it might not be useful for whatever reason,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that's fine. Find something that does work. You
Yeah, I
know.
spent an awful lot of my time in the past trying to convince people that seeing things in a particular way, the way I saw them, was actually helpful.
Mm,
And no, if people don't think it's helpful, it's not helpful for them. They
right.
are the arbiters of it, right? Not you.
We're not looking to mold people into something they're not. We're looking to, basically point at
Yeah.
point at things that people may not have noticed and say, "Hey, pay attention to that,"
Yeah.
and then we can fade into the background and let them figure it out on their own.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what? That ultimately doesn't matter how great an approach you've got, you're not going to get everybody.
Mm,
And
mm,
realizing that, I think this isn't mathematics where it is actually 2 + 2 is always going to be 4, and it's incontrovertible because it's defined like that. Science is nonetheless it's extremely good, but it's still controvertible. Science isn't incontrovertible. We don't know what information may come out in the future which might controvert some of the things that we currently believe. Mathematics is because it's defined like that.
mm-hmm,
And so therefore within the confines of the mathematics, and it can be, so science isn't even like this. So how
mm-hmm.
would we expect personal personal sort of understandings and emotions and relationships and all the complexity of that, if something as allegedly pure as science isn't still absolutely true,
Mm-hmm.
then where a lot of people are just getting hung up on the fact is that they're looking for this whole idea of truth. Now, the beautiful thing is, if looking for the truth for you is helpful, great, carry on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
Mm-hmm.
But 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 that's only good because it's helpful. It's not good because it's good in itself. It's not good because it's the truth is necessarily going to be any more valuable. It's just because you.
Right. It's not so much a judgment,
Yeah.
as to whether it's good versus bad, so much as if this is something that you connect with, that you resonate with, carry on more than
Yeah.
anything else.
So
Although I
anyway,
have a
so
question for you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, we can talk about anything you like, as always, and we can just see where it goes. But why don't you fire away? What's your question? Well, a question of many.
Of course, indeed. But the question of the moment is,
Yep.
how do you approach when you are interacting with somebody whose particular approach, their concepts that they find useful, are just not useful to you in any way? Well, I don't know about in any way, but the way in which they're not useful to you is perhaps, I don't want to say problematic, as challenging to connect with. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking mostly about people you have to be in a relationship with because they're blood or close.
Mm,
Like, there's lots of people that don't think the way I do and don't find my way of thinking necessarily fitting in with their worldview, but I don't have to
mm,
deal with them because they're either not. They don't even come into my sphere of influence, or they're clients in work that I don't have to be involved with. So I can
mm.
just fire them. I can fire clients if I don't particularly think that it's going to be useful, or they're not prepared to be open to it. I've done
Right.
that before when I've turned down money that is money is a wonderful thing. I love money. I think it's fantastic. But if it causes you any degree of angst or suffering or feeling like you're slightly just bending a little bit your worldview to accommodate them,
Hmm.
just get rid of it. You don't need to do it. And I've my wife would like me to do that more.
I'm sure.
She prefers, she goes, well, come on, you can just come on, think of the money, we can travel a lot more. And go, well, yeah, but a little piece of me dies every time I have to be involved in that relationship. But with family, you've got no choice really.
Right.
And so I do my personal involvement will with that type of thing is when you are always going to have a relationship with your mother, your brothers, your sister, and so on. And if their way of seeing the world isn't open to the fact that your way of seeing the world is also a possible way of living, in other words, if they're
Mm.
trying to, um, I suppose, if they're disruptors, if their way of doing things is going to disrupt your way of doing things,
Mhm.
then it is difficult. And we can go into more specific details. I'm sure there's a few more questions to follow up. But in principle, I would say, look, living in and amongst people who think differently from you, who see the world differently from you, who are doing things that you wouldn't do and you don't think are right,
Mm.
and not wanting to criticize them or condemn them or interfere with them is probably the single greatest human achievement.
Mm. Mhm.
Because to be in and amongst people that just think differently and kind of their way of living is impacting upon you negatively, yet being able to not want to interfere with them and to not want them to be different, but still to be able to protect your energy, because that's the key. Now you might not be able to do that, so what I would say is, look, if you're unable to really protect your energy, if you're unable to separate out from the script, because when you're with other people they can put you straight into your script and it's just like, hang on a sec, I know it's my script, but I don't really want to be in my script, and there's all this energy that I'm losing. If you're unable to do that, then don't spend, or then spend as much time away from this as possible. So spend as little time as you
Mm.
possibly can with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I kind of there's a long answer, but essentially, if it's impossible for you to maintain your own awareness beyond your own script, and no one can do this all the time. I don't stay out of my script all the time. I go to my script many times in the same day, but I'm getting very, very good, increasingly good at being able to just notice it and sort of pop out of it. So I can
Right.
be in and amongst people that I really don't enjoy, and I wouldn't choose to be in their energy if I could help it, but they're family members and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I will spend as little time as I can whilst it's still sort of socially and familiarly acceptable.
Mhm.
But um, but I'm kind of, it's kind of a good opportunity, right? When we get beyond the script totally, we end up connecting with nobody,
Mm. No, that's a good point.
right?
That's a very good
So
point.
So for us to remain in the human form, we're going to remain tethered to everyone else, connected to everyone else by the fact that we can still go into our script. And you know what? If you want to get me into my script, you start talking about maybe I wasn't as good enough a father or a husband in my first relationship,
Mm.
and it was
Mhm.
my fault that I can't see my kids. You know, if that's how, what if you said, well, yeah, okay, Tom, but why didn't you do this? Oh, you tried all this sort of stuff, but were you really trying? You know,
Yeah.
or teasing me about jazz music or any of my compositions, or having a real go at me at the things that I'm trying to do for the greater, not the greater good, that's the wrong expression, but greater life for all and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
That's the way to get me into my script. And I wouldn't choose to spend time with people who make me feel like that. But there are times, you've got family dinners, you've got situations where sometimes people are in a personal relationship and they really love somebody, but they know deep down that that person is sort of just destroying them a little bit, because they're thieving their energy away from a good average of being out of your script.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then you
No,
have
that
to
makes
you
sense.
have to make some decisions.
Well, I think that's sort of what it boils down to, isn't it? With a lot of this stuff, first you notice, and then you realize that you have a choice to make as to, as you say, protect your energy, and whatever that means. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a person. I don't know if you noticed on the groups we were talking about books and TV and that sort of thing, where there are messages that are not necessarily beneficial to um,
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
having a peace. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you, and here's a question. Now this would be really good. You're obviously you're deeply aware of what's going on. You've got a great personal insight. If someone came to you with that question, what would you say to them?
I well, I mean, I guess what I would say to them is well, first of all, it depends on the person. It depends on the
Yeah.
circumstance, right? I mean, in some cases, it might feel safe to have an actual conversation with the person that takes the form of not so much judgment or anything like that, or even saying you believe this and I believe that, and they're very different. Instead, simply trying to find conversations that you can have that don't bring up things that are going to be detrimental to having a
Mm,
positive relationship with this person,
mm,
or yes, I mean, if there is an opening to have a discussion, if the other person says, "Hey, can you explain why you believe X?" then go right ahead and do that. Um, and maybe even share enough of who you are and what is important to you such that the other person can back off even
mm,
just a little bit. I mean, recognizing and maybe making it explicit. Look, we don't have to agree. That's not the point here. I mean, we're not looking for everybody on the planet to agree on everything. That's sort of what would be the point of having all these different unique, you know, life forms, different unique humans, if we were all supposed to just agree on the same thing. So you can certainly just say, look, I'm not. If this is the case, then you could just say, I'm not necessarily looking to for us to agree. But on the other hand, I feel like maybe we can shift just a little bit, just so that there's more comfort, more connection. Um, and obviously, in some cases, that you won't have that safety, and that's just something that you'll have to recognize and be aware of. And again, like you said, protect your energy, protect your space, protect who you are, and that may simply mean that you are very sort of hyper vigilant about not incorporating into yourself things that other people have presented with to you.
mm.
That makes it sound very benign, but certainly people will say things in a way that's kind of like, well, this is who you are. They're telling you who you are, and in some cases, that may be a dynamic that is hard to work with, hard to move away from, especially if it's a relationship that's lasted, for however many, it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a family relationship. It could be with your boss, or
Yeah.
somebody that you interact with on a regular basis. But that being said, recognize, I think anything that I just said could be actually boiled down to one thing, which is you can't change other people. The
Right.
only person you can change is you. So if you're having, trouble connecting, you feel like, you may frame it as this person makes me feel horrible. Well, think about that, right? The person, that may be their intent, it may not be their intent. But the bottom line is you are the one who's taking in your experiences and incorporating them into who you are. And you can either do that sort of just, let things happen as they will, or you can actually say, okay, I'm going to try and do this more consciously. I'm going to say, okay,
Mm.
this person is saying this to me and I'm having this reaction. Let's notice the reaction. Let's even think about maybe where that's coming from without sort of being bogged down in where is that coming from? Just simply giving us a little perspective on why we have these reactions and how we might choose to have a different reaction. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could spend a whole lifetime on this sort of very issue. I mean, some of the things that I find very useful are to realize that, look, it is all the script. I mean,
mm,
everybody's got a script. Whether or not people don't believe this or not doesn't mean that they don't have one. This worldview is not. I mean, you might say, well, you're then saying, Tom, that this is the truth. No,
mm-hmm,
I'm not really saying this is the truth, but in my experience, I have met very, very, very. Well, I haven't met anybody yet. So far it's true. I haven't met anybody yet who always does only what they would choose to do, who always thinks only what they would choose to think, who always
Right.
feels only what they would choose. I've never met anyone like that. So for now, in the same way as every time I drop release a ball from my hand, it falls to the floor. That's kind of my experience. The empirical evidence is that there's a reaction going on. We're even going to give it a name. We're going to call it gravity and say, well, we're doing this 100 times and the same thing's happening, so we're going to assume that's going to carry on going. So I assume that when things are being presented by other people, I assume that they're in two states. They're either in their script or
Mhm.
they're being genuinely themselves. And my experience of them most of the time, when there's a problem or when there is energy disruption, energy thieving, energy vampiring, all that sort of stuff, when they're basically, aggro. Do you have that word aggro in America?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's kind of like, oh, it's just when you're around a certain person and it's always aggro, there's always something. You just can't totally relax. You
Hmm.
wouldn't feel really comfortable. It's just there's always something going on. They've always got a beef about something. Okay, we call that aggro. There's certain people and they've just got so much aggro. And I think that most of the time it's coming from their script. The script is usually to do with significance. I think nearly everybody's script has got significance as a major part, and that they can get that significance from being right, from being smart, from being handsome, from being pretty, from being clever, all these things. They want to be, more than anything, humans want other humans to notice them and for them to be meaningful to other humans in some way. Significance, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of people, their scripts are telling them the only way they can get significance is through X, this particular behavior, which might be to be knowingly aggressive. It might be unknowingly aggressive, but they've just learned through a period of time that that's the sort of behavior that gets the results that they want. So they do it. They might not necessarily be intending to cause trouble, intending to be difficult, intending to put the cat among the pigeons, but they've learned that over a period of time, that's kind of the sort of thing that juices them up,
Hmm.
that gets them going. And so if you know that most of the time when anything is going on, when someone's okay, well, would they choose to be saying something that is going to make me feel uncomfortable? Would they honestly, now it could be that they genuinely aren't your friend and that they enjoy making you uncomfortable. That's easy. Get rid of them. Don't spend any time with them ever again. If
Right.
people don't make if people don't make you feel good, they're not your friends, right? It's as simple as that. Now, if they're intending not to make you feel good and they don't make you feel good, well, that's an easy one. If they're not intending to, but they are, then you've got to ask yourself whether or not it's really their script or whether it's your script.
Right.
Because actually, a lot of the time is, well, hang on a sec, and this used to drive my Cindy. I don't want to say my current wife because that gives the wrong impression, but my wife Cindy. She used to drive her nuts, and I would say, "Look, you can't make me feel anything."
Mm.
And it was like sort of, it's not. I don't mean it in an unromantic way. I was just something like that. You are not responsible for my feelings.
Right.
I am 100% responsible for my feelings. You can show me your love, and I can interpret your love my way and see it a different way, and I can see it as something else, or I
Mm.
can interpret your neutralness, your neutrality, as either positive or negative according to how I'm seeing it. So you can't make me feel anything. Now, that also the problem with that, why it drove her nuts, was kind of then, well, does that mean then that you don't need me? And I Right? And I said, actually, it means that I don't need you, but it doesn't mean that I don't want you. And it's like, you
Mm.
never really say it like that because that would be a bit like, you don't, that's a bit like completely blunt and completely obtuse and, it's not very subtle and it's not very romantic. But there is a difference between, I absolutely want things to be a certain way because it'll make me happy or it'll give me great joy and all those wonderful things. But I don't need them to be that certain way in order for me to exist. I can still access the feelings irrespective. It doesn't mean that I don't want them, right? I want love from other people, of course I do, because everyone feels good. It's easier, but I don't need it. And that was kind of, whoa, that means I can be in and amongst other people, not needing anything from them at all, because I am totally self-contained. Now, that could, you could say, on one argument, the script will say, well, that just makes you a robot, doesn't it? Right?
No.
Okay, you know, that's what your script will say. Well, don't you want to? No, no. Of course, I go into my script all the time, so when I'm in the script, other people can make me do whatever they want, basically. But when I've got my awareness, and most of the time I'm on average out of the script a lot more than I'm in it, I realise that no, there are things that happen around me. These things that happen around me, I can choose to have a feeling as a result of those things. Most of the time I choose awesome, I choose gratitude, I choose love, I choose peace, I choose all those things just because I'm selfish, just because I want to feel those things, so I'm going to choose them, right? And you know, you might say, well, that's not exactly the situation that you wanted. No, it isn't exactly the situation that I wanted, but you know what? It's a greater capacity to be able to choose great feelings in spite of situations not being exactly how you want them to be. You know, the fact that I don't see my kids I haven't seen my, I was saying this just the other day, but you know, my eldest boy was 18 last Friday. I haven't seen him since 2006. Right, now if you were dwelling on that, imagine how that would make you feel. And I've just seen some pictures. He's got a Facebook account, and I've been kind of blocked from finding it, but whatever. Somehow these images from his 18th birthday party have kind of leaked, and I've seen them, and it's just great. It's wonderful. Now, I don't not want to see him. I absolutely want to see him. Always have done, always will. You know, and he's got to deal with the resident parent, his mum, and maybe her feelings and all that sort of stuff that he's not really sure about, and you know, or you know, for whatever reason, I just know that the last time I saw him, he wanted me to come back, and I haven't changed, and now you know he for whatever reason, it's not easy for him to open the channels of communication, right? So I don't want the situation to be like that at all, not at all. It's an intolerable situation, but I am lucky enough now to be able to think, okay, given that the situation is already bad, the last thing I want to do is feel bad as well, right? Because that's just two wrongs not make a right, isn't it? It's like, so it's bad enough. So but the script will say, yeah, but you must feel bad when you don't get to see your children. So, well, no, it's bad already. Why would I want to feel bad? That just makes me feel bad. You know, what I want to do is like feel really grateful that I've got a second chance, that I've got the option, the ability to love people that I'm with right now, and feel really grateful for the future, knowing that these things will sort themselves out. And in the general scheme of things, a few years, even though they're teenage years and developmental and formative years and all those things that the script can really batter you with, just know that I didn't want it to be like this, but it has happened. I don't think things have a reason. I don't think there's a reason for everything, but I think you can get reason from everything. And I've said this before in some of the chats. I genuinely think you can find a way to use that experience as an ability to connect with other people who might be going through a similar situation, or to help other people reframe their situation and think, well, actually, you know what? Tom's got the ability to be incredibly upbeat and all that sort of wonderful stuff, despite not seeing his children from his first marriage, right? And maybe that can be a little bit of the example, but I'm not doing it to be the example. I'm doing it selfishly because I want to feel good. So, you know, if I'm going to attract great people into my life, how motivated would you be to be involved in any of the things if you know I was doing? If I was going, you know what, life's pretty shit and I haven't seen my kids, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Oh God, woe is me, this is terrible, you know. But we can fix the world. We can make the world right.
Right, exactly.
Who wants to follow that? So those are, I suppose, as you said earlier, you know, you could sum it all up and say, look, other people have scripts too. And we have scripts. So if you allow for those two filters, that the other person probably is not doing what they would choose most of the time, and a lot of the time we're not choosing what is helpful for us, by the time you've got those two layers, you've probably solved everything, really. Deep down, they've got a heart. They want to be loved. They want significance. deep down you've got a heart. So if you could skip those two layers of script, you would probably think you'd probably get most out of just two hearts sort of like connecting directly to each other.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Everything else is the script.
Hey, you know, here's the thing
Go
that
on.
came up when you were saying all this, which is, well, there's two things, in fact. One is there's sort of, we keep talking about other people's scripts or your script, you know, individual scripts, but there's also, and I know we've talked about this before, but in this conversation, the society scripts,
Yeah,
societal scripts,
yeah,
cultural scripts,
yeah,
right? So you're saying the reason that came up is because it is a cultural societal script. I'm
yeah,
sure that you are either hearing or know, which is that if you don't get to, you know, if you can't see your children, then by definition you should be sad and upset or whatever. That you should be
yeah,
having certain kinds of
yeah,
reactions, and you know, and maybe you are, but that doesn't mean that that's sort of a foregone conclusion. To think that it's a foregone conclusion is to say, okay, then I've bought
mm,
into somebody else's script, even if it's not a specific person, it's just part of the culture. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was that we tend to forget about indirect impacts that we have on other people. Um,
mm,
and,
mm.
and this came up for me when you were talking about your kids, because it's true that you do not have that physical, you know, one-to-one connection in the, you know, in the present moment. But first of all, you have no idea what could happen down the road, and second of
Yeah,
all, who you are right now, whether they can see it or not, is impacting their lives. It just by definition, just simply because we all, you know, have these connections that we can't even begin to quantify or fully describe, but we know they're there. So
yeah.
if that's helpful for you, I don't know.
Oh, it is. It's tremendously helpful, and it's kind of helpful and galling at the same time. The fact that when I get kids who, when I was working in education, and I'd get
Yeah.
kids at one school I worked at, sort of like there's a bunch of Muslim kids there, and they don't really have much physical contact in general, but you'd get a sort of a 15-year-old, 16-year-old Muslim girl just giving you a big but totally deferential hug to say thank you, you've really helped me. I got a B in my maths as a result of, this has changed my life. When I came to the school and the school was like falling
Mm-hmm.
down, and I was part of the management team that really fixed it and turned the corner and all that sort of stuff, and these kids were going nowhere, and then a lot of them ended up getting great qualifications as a result, and you're sort of, wow, that's wonderful to get this sort of love and just, okay, you could call it adulation from these kids that I've worked with for like 2 years, and my own kids don't get the opportunity to experience, that. So yeah, it's galling, but it's wonderful to know that if you just keep doing what you can and doing the right thing, and you can't cheat the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I know that you could call it karma, you could call it anything, anything that is getting helpful rather than true. But this idea that what, kind of there is a checks and balances on the universe. It kind of will work out. It might not work out. I'm not talking about reincarnation or anything like that, but it might not work out the way you necessarily think it will work out. It might not come from the same source. But if you keep doing amazing stuff in the context within which you can work, and that's what I believe, then the word will get out about you, and the word will get out about what you're doing. You
Mm-hmm.
can't contain it, and people will be, my kids will be, they may not be now, but they will be unbelievably proud of what I'm doing at some point in the future. They might be bloody annoyed at the moment. They don't know even what the story is really, because I haven't seen them for so long, so they don't really know that there hasn't been a single day when I've ever not wanted to see them. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they've been allowed to grow up believing, well, you know what? Your dad has always wanted to see you every single day. He's always said, go and visit him. He's always wanted to come down. But you know what? For whatever reason, I've decided not to let him be able to see you. I'm sure that message hasn't been told. I'm sure that my ex hasn't been saying lots of bad things about me. I'm sure she wouldn't do that. But the point is, I'm sure that they weren't. The message wasn't, look, your dad really loves you, has always wanted to see you. He still wants to see you. You're wonderful. He still thinks you're wonderful. So I don't know what they think of me, but I know that
Mm-hmm.
in time, all I can do is what I can with what I've got where I am. So for me, that really helps me, because I know that when people hear a little bit about that story, they start thinking, well, you know what? If I did have children,
Hmm.
God, that would be about as hard a thing as you could possibly imagine, to be against your will separated from your own offspring, from your own children.
Hmm.
So I know that in some way, that even though that wasn't designed like that, so that I could experience this
Mm.
awareness, and reach the awareness, and it wasn't designed for that purpose, but that's what I've managed to get out of it. So
Yeah.
I couldn't have got to today without having gone through something like that. So you can't get anywhere in life that gives you greater awareness without having got that awareness from something, right?
Yeah, well, exactly, exactly. And being able to connect with that and know what it is, and then to be able to share it is just so powerful.
Mm. So go on, tell me about what your thinking is about in general, your vision for yourself and all that sort of stuff, and where you see yourself, and all the exciting stuff about the future.
Wow, I could go on for a while about that, but in general, I would say that my vision involves doing more writing and being able to share, what I can in terms of just basically very similar to what I'm sharing in the groups, which is just
Mm.
my thoughts about awareness and gratitude and all of these various things. And not so, I mean, for a while there, I was confused about how I wanted to approach it until I realized that I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time going over um, a lot of the sort of traumatic things that have happened in my life. People keep telling me, "Oh, you should share that." Lots of people want to hear that, and I'm sure that's true, and I'm sure that there will be a place for me to do that. But that's not the primary thing that I want to do. I want to focus on the flip side of that, which is the sort of resiliency piece, the being, present and mindful, and learning how to have greater awareness, things like this that actually get me more excited and make me feel more alive and I don't want to say positive, but just having a clearer sense of who I am and what I can do, what I'm capable of doing in terms of connecting with other people. Um, and then, yeah, so
Mm.
writing is one means through which I think I can do that. Another means is to sort of help other people put their writing and their talents out there. And so that's why I work with this publishing house as an editor. And so that's been really special as well. And, even just within the context of the mastermind group, it's been very powerful for me personally to have that kind of connection with other people who are going through, a similar sort of journey.
Mm.
Even though our journeys are very different, there's enough sort of connection in terms of the concept that we all believe in,
Mm.
and having a shared language is definitely helpful, but isn't always required.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that on the groups several times where somebody was like, "Well, that's not necessarily helpful for me, but here's what's helpful for me," and
Mm.
it's that's not a problem. That just gives us all a broader uh, view of the spectrum of possibility and experiences that are out there.
Yeah, it's like bringing a different. Everyone brings their own dish to the infinite buffet. Some other people will like their dish. Some people will like your dish. Some people will like my dish, or any combination of all of them. So I think that's you're completely right there, and that makes it easy for me to be able to say, look. Some people say meditation's great. Some people say they're not sure how to do it. Other people say, reincarnation's the thing. Other people say religion's the thing. Other people say no, religion's not. I'm going, hey, helpful's more important than true.
Right.
Whatever, provided whatever you're doing is going to bring greater life for all and less to none, and provided you
Mm,
see yourself as great as the greatest but no better than anyone else, these
mm,
fundamental principles, you know what? It doesn't really matter. It's like, honestly, I think that the universe is going to do pretty well without us or with us. It's not going to make much difference, you know.
Exactly.
You
Right.
know, in the general scheme of things, we are cosmically insignificant. So if we're cosmically insignificant, it
Mm.
can only be that we've got the ability. Sorry, cosmically insignificant in the physical realm. So
Correct.
it can
Yes.
only be that we've got another realm to us that gives us a reason to exist. You know, and I think that's
Mm.
the whole point. Our metaphysical domain is the entire universe. The fact that we can look out in the sky and work out that that little bit of white in the sky is coming from 15 billion years ago. You know, I mean, stuff like that is just insane. How do we do that? I mean, that's the
Mm.
human's ability to work out principle, to derive principle from observation, using our
Mhm.
metaphysical powers. And I think that's this whole. I mean, I'm so much into the Buckminster Fuller's approach of, you know, like basically the entropy of the universe scientifically is always being disassociated from stars, and it's gravity that reassociates it and pulls it together syntropically against the entropy to organize all this energy into like planets and then living things and then ideas. And
Right.
you know, it makes so much sense to me. I never got the idea that the entropy of the universe was really on the increase and that the whole universe was running down. To me, that didn't seem to make intuitive sense, and it was just a theory. It's just a kind of mathematical model. And
Mhm.
it seemed to make much more sense that there would be human function organisms in the universe spread out, all being totally physically different, but where the energy of stars which had been disassociated is organized primarily through the principle of gravity, gravity into life, life into ideas. It seemed to me that that made sense because you know, the whole balance of the universe. You know, everything we read about intuitively is all about balance, right? Light and dark, yin and yang,
Mhm.
positive and negative. You know, even experiences are either basically good or bad, aren't they? You know, it's not that there's, you know, there's broadly when you're explaining kids, you know when things are true. It's like when you explain to kids and they say, "What is a word?" and you say, "It's basically, yeah, it's basically good." You know, they ask another adjective, "What is it?" "Ah, it's basically bad." You can almost pretty much classify just about every description, you know, every kind of on a complex spectrum into to really good or bad. And I thought, well, that makes sense to me. Again, it doesn't matter to me whether it is actually true. You know, it's
Mhm.
helpful. If someone comes and proves that it isn't true, then it might matter to me. I'm not going to willfully believe in things which I know are not, I know are untrue. But for now, it seems to make sense to think that we do have a cosmic purpose, and that cosmic purpose, because we are so physically insignificant, can only be as a result of our metaphysical powers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And who knows? Who knows what we can do in the time that we are physically organized in the way that we are, you know, alive. Because our molecules aren't always going to be with us. They're going to be, as you said a number of times, you went to bed a different person from the one that woke up this morning.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, only in a small amount, but if some of the thoughts, some of the ideas, some of the memories, some of the molecules.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, when you get reorganized, when you're
Right.
when life no longer holds the molecules organized in the same way, in the way that we would recognize as you, and
Mm.
um, you know, what will we have done? And
Mhm.
exciting. Anyway, so that's so writing. Writing's a big thing.
Yeah.
What else?
So writing the publishing work. I feel like I'm forgetting something big, but I mean those are two very big things.
Well,
So
inspiring and communicating, and as you are doing now, like in the WhatsApp chat groups, you know, you're able to
exactly.
you're able to bring a number of dishes that a lot of people are finding very tasty, metaphysically tasty. So
Metaphysically tasty.
that's quite good, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
simplifying things. That's basically good. And you know, when you think about if all we can do is increase the ability for people to understand the the helpfulness of
Mhm.
their own metaphysical powers and their own capability, and the power of ideas and intention and visualization and faith and gratitude.
Mhm. Hmm.
if all we do is come up with better ways and better analogies to help people see the power of these things, then I think that would be quite a significant contribution.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I tend to get fairly bogged down with the process, or sort of like how are you going to get from point A to point B? And that's, of course, I mean, you and I both know exactly where that comes from. That's very script right there. So your this the whole working with the groups and whatnot has been helpful from the standpoint of just simply take the action. If you have a sense of something you can do, don't say, "Oh, but I need this tool to make it that much better," or "I need, maybe it will be better if you use those tools or whatever it is." Then that's fine. But in the meantime, work with what you got. And so I'm trying to do that more, and certainly it seems to be working.
Mm.
In fact, this past weekend, I finally put together a website for the imprint that I'm taking over, the speculative fiction imprint, and that felt really good because for a while I thought, well, maybe I can get somebody else to do it, or
Mm.
maybe I need to do it from scratch, or et cetera, et cetera. And finally, I just grabbed a template and tweaked the living daylights out of it until it was not exactly the way I wanted, until it was the way that I sort of had envisioned to begin with, which was amazing because I thought, wow, there's no way I can do that. And
Ah,
sure enough, it was just a matter of working with what I had access to, working with what I had time to do, and it ended up coming out the way I wanted it to, which is amazing.
that's
So,
that's that's incredible. If you can just keep doing that every so often, then that'll be wonderful, won't it? I think the script is such a big one on this, and I always tell people when I'm talking to them about business and their individual skills and making their business work and making themselves work better, I always say things like, "Look, start before you're ready.
hmm.
Just do stuff, and just do it as when good enough. It's never going to be good enough for you. You're way too close to it. So just get something out there and get that kind of iterative thing going. And you're going to laugh about what you do in 2 years' time. Look back and you're going to be laughing at the things that you were doing, like I will. I mean, I think what we've got is really cool at the moment. But in 6 months' time, we'll look back and what were we thinking when we started this? Why didn't we see that we could? It would have been so much better to do this, and the other. The point is the currency with which you get downloaded greater ideas is action. So it's only when you're actually doing things that the universe says, "Oh right, Naya's serious, right? Okay, I'm going to give her some more insight." Whilst
Mm.
you're not in the action stage, the universe is going, "Come on, show me the money, do something." I mean, I think deliberate thought is one of the most powerful actions you can take, of course, as you know. But it's so many people are waiting to get tremendous insight. Well, the playing field of insight is actually when you're taking action, when you're doing stuff. That's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. This is exciting. So, what actually is? I mean, is it possible for you to then write or be part of this whole speculative fiction that is interesting story-wise, has got drama, all those things, but it doesn't have too much of these negative impressions that we're trying to avoid?
Oh, you mean when I write fiction?
Yeah, well, we were talking about this in the group today, weren't we? And then
Yeah,
I think
we
one of the
were.
other authors was saying, thinks that it's important to have, struggle and suffering and then victory. And you were saying, well, is that necessary always to have that? What are your thoughts on that? Because I
Well,
thought
see,
it's
but I think there's a difference between throwing out gory scenes and violence and these sorts of things, versus describing what is sort of a universal human experience with times that are, physically challenging or emotionally challenging, and then showing what people can do with that. And so, if showing the struggle is that's not the part that's the problem. It's more along the lines of, are you trying to sensationalize it
yeah,
just in order to get more readers or something like this, versus simply describing describing the sorts of things that have happened to you, for example, because that's what you know best. And I think that's what I want to do is sort of focus, capitalize on the experiences that I've already had, and use that in my characters and my stories as a means to an end, a means to sharing the stories that sort of run through my mind and connecting with other people through that.
I'm with you on that because I think that that kind of sensationalism is really it comes from deep down the thinking or the paradigm that the way to connect with people is through providing them with this graphic physical sort of intensity, whereas I don't really think that's the case. I think that we actually have much more connection with people through our emotional intensity because we have all experienced quite different physical setbacks and different physical experiences and different physical situations, but we've nearly all experienced exactly the same emotional issues. Right. So I think the biggest connector is the underlying emotions, and I think that you're on it there. If you're writing about yourself and what's happened to you through your characters, then you will go straight to the source. You're going straight to that emotion, and you'll connect with other people. And if you're writing about stuff to sensationalize things, sure, but that will only appeal, or not appeal, that will only really resonate with a tiny percentage of the population, because the ones that maybe know something intimately about that kind of physical experience. Whereas, we're very different in just about everything other than love and the emotions and fear and uncertainty and self-doubt and the script. That's why the script is such a powerful metaphor, because like everyone's going, oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, all right. Yeah. And it's so subtle, that just little bit of doubt, that little bit of uncertainty. I love it when the script goes, yeah, you're nearly ready. Yeah, you're getting this stuff. You're almost ready to be awesome. Yeah,
that's
almost.
So insidious, isn't it? It's like,
isn't it? It's great.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm trying to be helpful. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I see you. Fuck off. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go now because it's 9:30, and I've actually got to do some genuine work. This is the most genuine of all the work I do. But it's so funny because I have a completely different paradigm. I'm still thinking that the stuff that the paid consulting that I do is still my real work, when it isn't actually. That's almost like the least impactful over the next 100 years. The work that I'm doing consulting with companies and with schools and with education organizations is going to have a vanishingly small impact on what the world looks like in 100 years. I'm not saying that it's useless, but just because of the way education is set up and the way is set up. I've got my ability to change the world is based on changing the way individuals think and getting them to realize that they don't need to listen to anyone. They don't need to listen to me. They can go straight to the source themselves.
Exactly.
And, exactly. So really, the work that we're doing in the WhatsApp groups in 100 years' time will have had so much greater an impact than any of the stuff that I'm getting paid a lot more money to do right now. But I'm still going to carry on doing that because I still enjoy it, and also my family needs to eat.
That is sort of a basic, fundamental thing. Yep. I think that Cindy would appreciate it.
I mean, it's quite funny because when you work for yourself and you do your own things, I'll just tell you this story actually because it's really interesting. I was in Spain when I was about 12, and my sister and I went with my uncle Bernard, drove all the way to Spain, south of Spain, and we were having dinner with my uncle and aunt who had a place out there, and then invited some South African friends over. And we argued, because Sarah and I, my sister, we were brought up with principles, and we were good at debating, we liked arguing, we liked to reason, and all this sort of stuff. We were arguing with this South African couple who were basically really quite racist, but observationally racist. They were being racist because they lived in and amongst the black people of South Africa and all this sort of stuff. And they were trying to say stuff that made us absolutely mad. But one of the things they were saying It was quite interesting because at the time I thought this is ridiculous. And they said, look, they've got a factory and they had a bunch of guys working for them, indigenous South Africans, blacks. And they said, you know what, we can't pay them any more money. Right?
Mm. Mm.
Because if we give them a raise, and if we pay them twice as much, for example, they'll just work 2.5 days a week instead of 5 days a week. And I say, that's ridiculous, that's crazy. What do you, no, that's A, that's really racist. B, why don't you try it and see what happens? And you know what, I was thinking at the time that that was a terrible judgment to make of people. And then just recently I was thinking, that's actually really smart. That's actually bang on the, that's exactly what I do now. When I get paid more per day, I work fewer days. So I've been doing some consulting work recently that was paid really well. So I only had to do a few days work last month. It's fantastic. So I am kind of a mindset. The most important thing for me is time. And what appealed to me is that this guy was being racist, and he was, it was awful what he was saying. But maybe there is a greater awareness in that actually, if you've got enough money to support your standard of living, then the trick should be to try and make that amount of money in the minimum amount of time possible, or the minimum amount of time doing what you don't really, really, really want to do, or making it out of doing entirely what you really, really want to do, right?
Right.
And I thought, right at the moment, whilst I love doing all this, the consulting that brings, that pays the mortgage and brings the food on the table mostly, of course, my online businesses are going great, fantastic, and I'm certainly grateful for everything. But I am working. I'm trying to keep the amount of money I've got coming in about the same. I just work less. I'm just working a little bit less all the time. I think that's because that's more. It's more time being able to spend with you and with the people in the group and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And little Theo.
Yeah, exactly. And little Theo, and just. I mean, it's been wonderful. I've actually got to do 3 days work this week, which is that's gonna be uncomfortable. But next week I'm hardly doing anything, so it's not too bad.
There you go.
There you go. And you've got a couple of weeks off now, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be good.
So, have you set yourself a kind of a milestone for what you want to have achieved by the end of these 2 weeks?
I have actually, at least in part. And what I'm hoping to do is to take, honestly, a lot of the stuff that I've said on the WhatsApp groups and things that I've written in my vision journal and audio recordings that I've made as things sort of came, downloaded to me, and just literally just put those together, maybe separate them according to category or something, I don't know, and then tweak them only just a little bit, so there's a nice flow. And then basically say done and move on to the next thing and stop worrying about, oh, I need to write this from scratch. No, you've already written, however many pages, and it won't take much to put it all together. So that's my main goal, to be honest with you.
Tons of stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's just, I'm inspired by the conversations we have. I mean, people will say like just a couple of words, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes me think of this, or people will write whole long stories, and I just need to sort of sit with those sometimes. But always something comes up, and I love it. I think it's great.
It is good, and I think when you think of the sheer volume of content that is being created,
tell me about it.
Astonishing, and this unfolding of everybody's collective awareness. I mean, one of the things that led me and Sam to realize that when we have our own kind of 13x4 app, we've got to have the ability to have that journaling and then export it, because at the moment it's a bit fiddly to export it, but we want to make it really super easy so that you could just export that and just turn it into a really nice, beautiful looking sort of physical book. Because imagine we can do that, because I think you saw that some of the ways that it was showing up, you can get it to show up in the sort of the bubble format. And so we can do that, and we will do that at some point with all these chat archives, and you can see the everythingness of going. But there would be already like 10 books.
Yeah, easily.
It's just like, whoa. When you wake up in the morning, sometimes there's like, if you haven't been on for a day or two, and there's something like 700 messages, it's just like,
exactly.
And it's quite overwhelming, but it goes really fast. You actually read them really quickly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's just pretty amazing, actually.
Anyway,
All right, I'll
um,
let you go now.
yeah, enjoy the rest of the evening over
Talk
there,
forever.
and just have a fantastic couple of weeks. No doubt I'll see you in the chat rooms of the world,
No
and
doubt.
keep doing what you're doing. I think that the ability for each of us to independently go to the source and talk straight from our hearts, our own way, is the thing that really makes it wonderful. I think everything else. I was talking to Ruth actually earlier on today. I didn't expect it to be like this. When I set up the WhatsApp group, I was just literally thinking of it as a way in which I could talk to 50 people at a time.
Right.
I just thought it was me being able to just send out messages to 50 people at a time, and I realised that, yeah, of course, I still go on there, and I still go on there a fair amount, and people still like it, but I couldn't close it down if I wanted to.
No.
It's got a value and a life entirely of its own. It's that collective mastermind effect, and that's awe-inspiring. And that is, again, it's the combined metaphysical powers. And these are just ideas and words and thoughts and energy, and it's just imagine where not only do they make us feel good, these
Mm.
this individual and collective, this joint coming to deeper awareness, but it will turn from the metaphysical into the physical. As within a short period of time, there'll be amazing things happening, like are happening in my business ventures, like are happening with your writing, like are happening when I talk with Ruth about her business and the way that's going. The
Mm-hmm.
universe can't ignore people who are following its principles.
And there you go. Yeah.
Anyway,
All
lovely
right.
chatting, Naya. You have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Same to you. All of it.
Bye.
Bye.